So I want to talk about what is the core digital competencies that our children must have. So we call it DQ, digital intelligence. It's like IQ, EQ, and DQ. It was almost surprised that when I see the OECD framework, how much it was aligned with our framework and our thinking. So this morning we heard enough about the future. And we heard from Andrea, there will be contrast between empowered people and disempowered people. And also, we heard many things about the ambiguity and VUCA futures. So we have, certainly, when we talk about the digital education, there's a fear in ours. And we want to figure out what are the right education we want to talk about. And what is the outcome of our digital education that we want to strive for? I think Charles actually mentioned in a very elegant way about our being as a moral being, as economical being, and creative being, and political being that can actually benefit ourselves and others. So with the goal of well-being of 2030, I think it is important for us to educate children in the 3 dimensions for them to take a responsibility in online and offline, as well as they can cope with the dilemma and threats and challenges in the digital life. I can talk to you more about the cyber risks that our children are currently experiencing, but at the same time, it is about not just about minimizing the side effects, also maximizing the benefits, which is creating the new values in the digital economy, which all the nations are now striving to achieve. So currently, let me just briefly talk about the digital environment our children are currently have. Nobody wants to hear the bad news, but unfortunately, there is a bad news. Andrea this morning talked about the bullying, but well, we saw the statistic about 20%, but cyberbullying worldwide is about 40%. Addiction, excessive use of digital technology, goes up to 10%, and some surveys feel that the young children feel that more than 40% of children say they are addicted to the device. And violent content and false news, fake news, privacy invasions, violence, and online theft. So our children have 35 times more likelihood to get the identity theft compared to our generation who are sitting here. So we are not talking about removing digital technology from children. We need to talk about what is a holistic framework that we need to educate children today. There is urgency really now because our children, you saw from Andrea's presentation, they're spending their life at least 2 to 5 hours. Some surveys say 10 hours per day in digital life. Then what are the things that we want to talk about? When we talk about digital education, a lot of people start thinking about coding education and digital literacy, which is fantastic. But these are the technical skills that children must have. But we need more than that. We need to educate them about to become a holistic being. So starting with the digital identity, citizen identity. So we need our children to be a good, ethical, digital, and global citizen. So teach them about how to be online and form the identity is really important. Second part is about the digital use. Now we are actually confronting our AI is coming in. And we are having the virtual reality, augmented reality. So no more screen time may not be valid, but we need children to balance their online and offline life. So we need to give them ability of self-control and self-regulation. Third, about the cyber safety. We want children to have a resilience and wisdom to deal with the cyber risk and at the same time, deal with it with benefiting themselves and others. And the cybersecurity management. It is really fundamental these days. Without teaching children, starting from setting up the good password and identifying the cyber risk, cyber threats from the younger age, it is very difficult for our children to maintain their data security and privacy. And digital empathy. digital emotional intelligence is critically important because now EQ is not enough, we believe, because digital world, there also communication is happening and more dominating. And because they're not seeing each other face to face, having more empathy and empathetic and understanding about their communication is very important. Next, about the online communication, we heard a lot about online communication as well as collaboration. And it's starting from the digital footprint. They need to understand what it means to be communicating online. Leaving their digital footprints behind is also important. And digital media literacy, starting with the critical thinking. It's not just one thing apart, it has to be of a discernment about the content, as well as the information. And lastly, about digital rights. Digital rights starting from the privacy. So there is a Mark Zuckerberg saying there will be no privacy for our children, but we need to actually teach our children privacy is a human right. And they need to understand what it means to be private, online and offline. They need to understand how to speak freely online with the freedom of speech. They need to understand intellectual property rights in the online and offline. So holistically, we need to teach them about all these competencies. And this is a result that we observe. There is a very intercorrelation between DQ skills as well as other competencies. And one thing I want to highlight is that what we did in Singapore is to develop online platform, actually that can be actionable to all teachers and all children. The key bottleneck in schools currently not teaching the DQ is that teachers feel powerless when it comes to digital skills. So we made it to all online learning and self-learning have them to go through this program. And well, we're lucky to announce our first result at Davos. I'm hate to go back to Mr. Trump, but thanks to Mr. Trump attacking everyone as a fake news, it became the really hottest topic. And one thing that we found is that it's important to having this balance of minimizing and maximizing. And one thing I really want to discuss is about the evaluation and assessment and giving the feedback. So far, digital competency has not been properly assessed. So it is our first attempt to identify these DQ skills and how to assess them through the online space. So now within our platform, we are providing a nations to implement, plug and play this DQ education system to any nations. And it will give individual level, school level, national report. So that 2018, we are collaborating with the World Economic Forum to publish the first global DQ index. But it is really important for us to work together to build the community of learning. And it is not about just children. We also include the parents and schools and IT industries, as well as NGO, to work together to empower our children to thrive in their digital economy. Thank you.